impression is I'm truly humbled to speak after that. That would be my first impression. It's truly humbling. And I was deeply moved. It's an outstanding documentary. I learned a lot. There's a lot I knew about the Korean War, but I learned a lot more. I thought it was outstanding. And I'm very humbled speaking after that. It's a great honor to be with you today, and I want to thank Director Chae-young Kim for inviting me. I also congratulate him on this important documentary, Legacy of the Battlefield, which comes at such a critical time.
Thank you very much.
Sure. By the way, Kim and Sue, you gave me this when you were in the assembly, this scarf.
지금 여기 수잔 대표님께서 입고 계신 스카프가 김문수 전 의원께서 직접 선물하신 스카프라 그럽니다.
We see the rising threat of communism here in the miracle of the Han, this beautiful land of the morning calm that is facing a great threat to its liberal democracy under the administration of Lee Jae-myung. Tomorrow I will be addressing the World Convention on North Korean human rights and highlight 3 challenges we have faced since I first became involved in this work in 1996. These 3 challenges are ignorance, indifference, and open hostility. For you today, I want to highlight these challenges, some of the critical ways we need to respond, the actions that we need to take in this new environment, and then I will love to hear your questions. In my opinion, we're entering the most challenging time in the history of the North Korean human rights movement. When I first began this work in 1996, the greatest challenge we faced was ignorance, because our governments failed to listen to what North Koreans were telling us. When North Korea's highest-ranking defector Hwang Jong-yap defected in 1997, he told us North Korea will never give up their nuclear weapons, human rights is the Achilles heel of the regime, and Kim Jong-il had intentionally starved 3 million people to death. He also thought the regime was on the brink of collapse and wanted to do all he could to save his homeland by bringing about peaceful unification under the Republic of Korea's constitution. But our governments did not listen. In the United States especially, the Clinton administration and the Bush administration intentionally sidelined concerns about human rights because they truly believed that the Kim regime would negotiate in good faith to abandon their nuclear weapons. Not only was this a tragic and deadly mistake to ignore the horrific crimes against humanity occurring in North Korea, it also helped feed Kim Jong-il's lies. The Yankee imperialist soldiers, the Yankee imperialist wolves, are our sworn enemy who want to destroy us, but I will keep you safe. Everything Hwang told us proved true. And more North Korean defectors escaped, and even today they state the same thing. As my closest colleague in this fight, Kim Sung-min, founder of Free North Korea Radio, would often state, the road to peaceful unification is the end of the Kim regime. Human rights must be our first priority, and spreading the truth in North Korea is the way to set them free. We've also faced terrible indifference to what was happening then, and is still happening today to the people of North Korea. This is despite the fact that the UN Commission of Inquiry's conclusion in 2014 that the DPRK was committing crimes against humanity and gross violations of human rights that have no parallel in the world today. This was during the so-called time of the Sunshine Policy, when the Korean government came up with this failed policy of appeasement based on the Aesop fable. If they shine some sunshine on the Kim dictatorship, the Kim regime would open up to reform and there would be peace on the peninsula. But the only ones who got any benefit from the Sunshine Policy were Kim Jong-il and DJ Kim, as 3 million North Koreans starved to death during that period, while hundreds of thousands faced daily suffering in North Korea's gulags. The indifference to the suffering of the North Korean people by the South Korean administrations of DJ Kim and Roh Moo-yeon breathed new life into the Kim Jong-il dictatorship. Now we face open hostility, which began under the Moon Jae-in administration and is now being carried out by the current administration of Lee Jae-myung. It is really important for the people of South Korea to understand that the Moon administration took away your civil rights, your freedoms when it passed the anti-lethaling law. This law violates the rights you have under the Republic of Korea's constitution and violates the obligations South Korea has under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. As Article 19 states, everyone shall have the right to freedom of expression. This right shall include freedom to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas of all kinds, regardless of frontiers, either orally, in writing, or in print in the form of art, or through any other media of his choice. And although it was declared unconstitutional, the Lee administration is strenuously enforcing it. Basically, Lee Jae-myung is carrying out the request of the Kim regime to strengthen Kim Jong-un's power by depriving South Koreans of their human rights. Ignorance, indifference, and now open hostility. So how should we respond? First, we must recognize our enemy and face the fact that this is a spiritual battle as well as a political battle, as we are facing one of the most evil, darkest places in the world. And that is why I think the most important priority for us is prayer. I believe one of the most important organizations in this fight is the Esther Prayer Movement. And I believe the South Korean churches that are regularly praying for North Korea must have our full support, because this will make the difference in this fight. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Ephesians 6:12. Now I'm going to show you some slides. And Grayson, you're going to help me with the slides, right? Okay. So the first one. I think this photo of Korea at night really dramatizes the spiritual nature of this conflict we're facing, as that dark area between South Korea and China is where 24 million people are living in terrible darkness. And it's up to us to be a source of light. It's like God is showing us from heaven this conflict. You would think it was a body of water between China and South Korea, but we know it is a land of great darkness and suffering, both literally and figuratively. It's important to remember this quote from Alexander Solzhenitsyn, because it's very relevant for today, because what we see the elite administration jailing pastors like Sun Hyung-bo and fining people like the last candidate for president, Kim Un-soo, because he went to church during COVID. But why do communists fear God? Slide 3. Alexander Solzhenitsyn explained it to us. Within the philosophical system of Marx and Lenin, and at the heart of their psychology, hatred of God is the principal driving force, more fundamental than all their political and economic pretensions. Militant atheism is not merely incidental or marginal to communist policy. It is not a side effect, but the central pivot. Today we're living in a time where the global war is intensifying between good and evil, between freedom and slavery, between liberal democracy and communism, between truth and lies, and it's reaching a tipping point. And God is showing us very powerfully on the world stage what's at stake, but he's also showing us who our enemies are. Now these next slides, where do you see young people carrying around posters of Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin? Where do you think these photos were taken? I've asked that question for nearly 2 years, and very few people have answered it correctly. But audiences have always been shocked when I have told them. These are actual photos from the West Bank. These are Palestinians supporting Hamas, protesting their hatred of Israel, their hatred of the Jewish people, their hatred of the United States, but you'll also see who they love. Kim Jong-un, Putin, and Xi Jinping. We see alliances of pure evil in this world. And these photos were taken on September 20th, 2023 at a pro-Hamas rally just 13 days after Hamas attacked Israel. How did they get that organized that quickly? Because they'd already been working together against us. We know that the last large group of North Korean refugees repatriated by China back to North Korea occurred late in the night on October 9th, 2023. Why October 9th, 2023? It was because 2 days before that date, Hamas brutally attacked Israel, and the PRC knew that our attention would be focused on Israel. China wants to hide this crime against humanity, and they know that North Korean refugees have a place to go for immediate resettlement as they are citizens of the Republic of Korea. Recognizing our enemy is critically important, and the regime in China is no friend to the Korean people, which is important to distinguish because we know citizens of China have shown compassion towards North Korean refugees and, in fact, been jailed for helping refugees. Second, we need to address the ongoing refugee crisis. This is a horrific ongoing crisis that could be solved overnight. The North Korean children, women and men who fled North Korea and are either being imprisoned or hiding in China to avoid forcefully being sent back to North Korea. The PRC knows that every North Korean forcibly repatriated will 100% be tortured, 100% be imprisoned, and in some cases executed for fleeing their homeland. We must continue to pressure China on this issue. The US government and other civilized nations should sanction Chinese officials involved in this heinous act, which violates China's international treaty obligations. At the Korea-US National Prayer Breakfast this month, I publicly prayed that God would remind Lee Jae-myung and his administration of their obligation to protect South Korea's freedom and to advance North Korea's freedom. His obligation under the Republic of Korea Constitution is clear, and these refugees are his citizens, deserving of his protection both morally and constitutionally. We have fervently appealed to China to stop helping Kim Jong-un in murdering the Korean people. So what happened to those refugees China repatriated right after Hamas brutally attacked Israel? In August 2024, 2 of the women were executed, and 9 others were sent to slower deaths in political prison camps to serve life sentences. Their crime? Trying to help people get here to South Korea. This past March, we hosted the rescuers, 4 individuals who have rescued close to 10,000 North Koreans. One of them, Jia Park, who established the first underground railroad that rescued 7,000 refugees, said, "The Underground Railroad gives us a picture of what Korean unification will look like because it was North Koreans, South Koreans, and Chinese and NGOs all working together to save lives." These 4 rescuers emphasized every North Korean escapee is precious, and these North Koreans are the ones who have the greatest desire and commitment to a free and unified Korea. We must save their lives. Third, to achieve peaceful unification, we must make human rights the #1 issue. As Hwang Jang-yap told us in 1997, and thousands of North Koreans have repeated ever since, human rights is their Achilles heel of this regime, because when North Koreans understand they are not slaves but have basic rights, the regime is gone to the ash heap of history. For me, this has always been at the forefront of my work as for 30 years, not just because of a calling from God, but when America does not stand up for human rights, we feed the Kim regime lies and propaganda that we are the enemy, bent under destruction, like these propaganda paintings portray. North Koreans are brainwashed from childhood to hate Americans and think that we are their enemy, not a peaceful people who care about their freedom and human rights. We need to emphasize human rights because North Koreans need to understand that all Americans and most South Koreans desire for them to enjoy the same freedom and human rights that those born south of the DMZ enjoy. Those very freedoms that 37,000 Americans and nearly 138,000 South Koreans died to preserve. Fourth and finally, we must communicate truth to the people of North Korea utilizing all possible methods through the most powerful weapon we have, the North Koreans who've escaped. It's important for North Koreans to understand their God-given rights for which they are entitled from birth, but for which they have been deprived by the Kim family dictatorship. This is especially important to me as my Christian faith, is what motivates me in this work. No one can better communicate the truth than those who've escaped. Even the elites in power in North Korea are faced with a horrible choice the morning they wake up: being slaves to Kim Jong-un or facing execution and the death of their entire family. Every one of us should be supporting and partnering with the North Korean escapees living in the free world. They know best how to reach people in North Korea and how to best communicate truth to them. Consider that everything that Kim Jong-un demands from South Korea is a sign of something for which we should do more. Let me just highlight one example. The loudspeakers at the DMZ. Why did Kim Jong-un want them shut down? The loudspeakers reach 70% of North Korea's ground forces and 50% of their air and naval forces, as they are all deployed within 100 kilometers of the DMZ. Kim Jong-un is terrified of his slaves, including those serving in the military, to learn the truth about the poverty and richness that South Korea has become. The prosperity and richness that South Korea has become. His dictatorship survives on a mountain of lies, which is why he must keep his slaves in darkness. It undermines his dictatorship when North Koreans learn the fact that South Korea is highly regarded all over the world for its many achievements in industry and in culture. It's why Kim Jong-un executes teenage boys for listening to K-pop music and teenage girls for sharing South Korean soap operas. It undermines his dictatorship when North Koreans escape and find freedom in South Korea. Kim Jong-un is so terrified of his people escaping planted landmines at the China-North Korea border to kill his own citizens if they try to flee to South Korea. Now I know that the work we do has become controversial, but it should not be. I want to show you a series of slides and tell you about the impact that we can have when freedom-loving people partner with our greatest resource, North Korean escapees. This slide is a cartoon the North Korean regime published on their propaganda website attacking me when we held North Korea Freedom Week in Seoul for the first time. The cartoon startled and scared me at first. It was a bit frightening. Why would they depict me as a kangaroo? There are no kangaroos in Korea or in the United States. My husband worried it was a subtle threat against our son, who was attending the Virginia Military Institute at the time. VMI's mascot is the kangaroo. Now note the microphone symbolizing broadcasting. Kim Sung-min and I were partners in support of Free North Korea Radio since its inception, and the DPRK is afraid of its powerful programs broadcasting to North Korea. Note the leaflets. These leaflets sent in via balloon launches are another source of fear because they also communicate information to the people of North Korea. It's why the DPRK came up with the brilliant idea of sending trash balloons to South Korea to stop Park Sun-hak's very successful work, which was having an impact in North Korea. Because the DPRK at the time did not have a compliant South Korean president to do its bidding, it came up with the brilliant idea of sending trash balloons to South Korea to get the South Korean people to turn against those doing this work. Note the red dot symbolizing Japan. North Korea fears any close alliance between South Korea and Japan and works hard to cause tension between these two democratic nations. It's important to remember that Japan passed a North Korea Human Rights Act long before the South Korean Assembly. Finally, note the symbol here in this cartoon for which I'm most proud, the cross, symbolizing the Christian faith. You see the cross in the pouch. We know that the Kim regime also fears Christianity. Christianity is a greater threat to the regime. It's even a greater threat than South Korea, America, Japan, or even capitalism. Now why? Because the DPRK regime is the complete antithesis of a faith that values each and every human life. A faith that teaches about sacrificial love, redemption, and freedom. This is a regime that disdains human life, condemns, and enslaves. We've also worked with North Korean defectors to carry out the daily broadcast of Free North Korea Radio, but also to carry out Operation Truth, which has successfully delivered over $258,000 worth of radios, rice, ramen noodles, flash drives, and other items that North Koreans request. And that's just over the past year. In this slide, this is until the Lee administration, in its efforts to shut us down. Through Operation Truth, we successfully delivered over 36,000 kilograms of rice, 3.9 tons, 2,760 Bibles, over 200 booklets, 1,250 shortwave radios, 200 multimedia radios, over 2,860 US $1 bills, over 30,000 vitamin tablets, over 11,300 flash drives, over 200 SD cards, 5 SD card copiers, 2,000 gloves, 450,000 leaflets, over 20,000 masks, and 50 kilograms of moon pies, over 50,000 pain relief tablets, 2,000 pens, and close to 4,000 ramen noodle packages. Free North Korea Radio and Operation Truth are successful projects that are 100% financed by freedom-loving people in the world, but they're only successful projects because they're 100% carried out by North Korean escapees. Slide 9 is the motto. There's a picture of the staff of Free North Korea Radio. Their motto is, "The truth will set them free." It regularly ranks the #1 website in South Korea for information about North Korea and is the single most popular hour of broadcasting to North Korea based on surveys of escapees. This next slide is Operation Truth is like the Berlin airlift, except it's by land, by sea, and by air. The Berlin airlift was carried out specifically to get help to people being starved to death by a communist dictatorship. That is exactly what Operation Truth is trying, to get help to people who are being starved to death by a communist dictator. What the defectors are doing by sending in leaflets was something that was started by the US Air Force in the 1960s, Operation Geely, Operation Truth, sending in leaflets of factual information to the people of North Korea. And it was carried out by previous South Korean administrations until the very dark days known as the Sunshine Policy. Balloon launches have been used to communicate information to North Korea. Hundreds of thousands of leaflets were sent in by Park Sang-hak and his family, and letting North Koreans know of the torture and death of Otto Warmbier, as well as the news that South Korea had elected a new president, Yoon Suk-yeol. The newest technique is the water balloon. It's filled with rice, ramen noodles, Bibles, flash drives, and placed in the water to float to North Korea. Each water balloon has a picture of Kim Jong-un's face, so North Korean border guards cannot fire on them. This is the head of Kim Jong-un, so shoot it if you can. The North Koreans will live in a strong and unified country if Kim can be removed. And I love, love, love this picture of a water balloon launch, because what do you see in this picture? A young child with her family, because this is about saving North Korean families. A North Korean family is in the dead of night participating in a water balloon launch to save other families. This next photo is a photo of a rice bottle. Each rice bottle contains enough rice to feed a family for a week, plus a US $1 bill, which could feed a North Korean for a week, plus flash drives full of content which can range from messages from members of Congress to K-pop music to the Gospels to current news. And each rice bottle contains the one thing Kim Jong-un fears more than anything else in the world, the Bible. And the defectors love sending in the Bible, because the Bible is truth. And North Koreans are learning they are loved and have value as human beings, and that God is the one that gave them freedom and loved them enough to send his son for their salvation. They are not Kim Jong-un's slaves. This next slide, this is a picture of my little brother and partner for over 20 years, the late Kim Sung-min, who received the highest civilian award from President Yoon last year. He's been our main partner in this work as the director of Free North Korea Radio and the one helping to carry out Operation Truth. This is the last picture I took with Kim Sung-min this past summer before he died last month. This is Kim Ji-young on the left, who Kim Sung-min named to be the new president of Free North Korea Radio. He's sitting right here. I call her my new boss. New boss. She and her family were once elites living in Pyongyang, but suffered miserably, torture, imprisonment, and banishment. But while she lived in North Korea, she listened to Free North Korea Radio. Recently, Kim Ji-young was in contact with her relatives still living in North Korea. They warned her that the DPRK State Security Bureau was closely monitoring her activities, knew she traveled to the United States for North Korea Freedom Week, and was working for Free North Korea Radio. Her response was, I quote, "I guess I should have been a little scared when I got the call, but I thought to myself, I have to work harder since they're watching our activities. I will work harder and more courageously from now on until the day when freedom comes to North Korea, until God establishes his kingdom. I ask you that you all be with us." Now friends, the North Korea regime is closely watching our activities and what we're doing in this historic time. And now we're facing open hostility for advocating for freedom and human rights for the Korean people. So we need to do all we can to continue to advocate for the people of North Korea and reach them by land, by sea, and by air with the truth. We are now facing this most difficult time under the Lee administration, so I ask that you be with us. When we're asked, when will the regime collapse? The North Korean defectors and I always say, tomorrow. But we must do our part until that day. And when we're together, we always pray, 아버지 자유복한. 아버지 자유복한. Thank you.